district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back, now all of a sudden they don't make any sense? Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back for a special edition, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, with a huge guest today, fresh off of Tommy Libretti last night. Go check out last night's 2-hour show. Tons of goatness on that one to help you guys get better in fantasy. And this hour is going to be no different. We are so pumped to have the co-founder of Establish the Run. You know this man already, for sure. Adam Levington, welcome to the GOAT District, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I love that intro. I love the personalized intro song to the podcast. We got to get that going. That's actually awesome.
We'll hook you up with Gabe's digits when he's between twins and changing diapers and whatever else the man bun's got going on. But we're happy to have you, man. Andrew, the fourth wheel of our car here, always jokes that Establish the Run and the GOAT District would be the perfect partner because our colors just match so well.
Yeah, and Adam, you should hear our best ball. Our best ball song might be even better. Our balling episodes. It's really, really good stuff.
Amazing.
All right, Theo, let's get started, man. We want to squeeze Adam as much as we can for this 60.
So you guys are putting out a lot of tremendously good content, whether it's podcasts and written content over at Establish the Run. You guys recently came out with a lot of your materials for your draft kit to help get people prepared for their drafts. Who are a few players that Establish the Run has ranked higher than consensus? You guys are more bullish on than maybe the some other sites and players.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think early in the process like this, you see a wider disparity of people's rankings and people's opinions. And as the market gets more liquid, i.e., more people come into the market, it's going to be more efficient from an ADP perspective. So yeah, I always encourage people to draft early when they can. You can get crazy values. I think a lot of it is already starting to move, like Aaron Jones was going in round 3 not that long ago. Now he's in round 2. Same with Saquon Barkley, and all kinds of stuff like that. I think some later guys that we're higher on the market right now would be Ramondre Stevenson would probably be number 1. I think people are underestimating what's going on with James White's hip injury. And so there's a really good chance. I mean, Mike Reese left James White off of his roster projection, projected James White to start the year on PUP. And James White's 30 years old. This hip injury doesn't sound good. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is clearly better than Damian Harris in the pass game. I think they have no desire or intention whatsoever to use Damian Harris in the pass game at all. So you could see Ramondre get a share of the early down work and all the pass down work. Beyond the really good offensive line for the Patriots, I think that one's interesting. The Kadarius Toney one, we're certainly higher on. Kadarius Toney obviously was an absolute monster in targets per route run last year. Had all kinds of weird off-field stuff going on, which may continue. But man, so much talent, and you get arguably, I think, probably the biggest coaching upgrade in the entire NFL from an offensive scheme perspective, going from just the absolute idiots they had running the Giants stuff before to now getting Brian Daboll in there, and then Trey Lance too. I think there's some public perception out there that Jimmy G is coming back or has a chance to come back, and I think once people realize that's not happening, Trey Lance's ADP is gonna skyrocket. And so we're trying to be out in front of that, and we're projecting Jimmy G to play 0 games for the 49ers this season.
We love the Ramondre Stevenson love. We talked about him a lot last night on our running back show. He's certainly intriguing. How can people use your guys' rankings kind of to exploit ADP at this time of the year?
Yeah, so right in all our tables, we have our rankings right next to ADP, and like just because we have a guy ranked 4 rounds above ADP doesn't mean you should take him 4 rounds above ADP. I think people make that mistake a lot, like understanding where you can get a guy, and if you do enough of these drafts, you understand where a guy normally goes, where you can get him, where you might need to reach, and you start to get a feel too for guys rising. Like I already mentioned Saquon Barkley, like I could like feel that people were starting to get higher and higher on Saquon Barkley. So you have to, if you want him, you have to stop waiting to the 3rd round, towards the end of the 2nd round, towards the 2nd round. And now, like, man, there's some early 2nd round Saquon going on now.
As soon as the shirt comes off, Adam, it's over, man.
Right.
It's over. Summer's over.
Exactly. So yeah, I think understanding ADPs is vitally important for sure.
And Dan, you're a big fan of Aaron Jones as well. How high were you comfortable taking him right now?
I have no problem taking Aaron Jones into the probably mid-2nd round or so. Though at that point there might be some wide receivers I'm looking at a little bit more, but I want to make sure I have some Aaron Jones in my portfolio before all is said and done. So I'll make sure I get some there.
Does that mean you guys are low on AJ Dillon, Adam? I kind of like his price at 6. Just he's got a bit of that standalone and obviously injury possibilities there.
No, we're high on both. We have Aaron Jones 17th overall right now, and we have AJ Dillon 76th overall. So we're slightly behind market on AJ Dillon by a hair, but no, we're projecting Packers pass rate to decline again this year. It was already like not that high, not that extreme, but I think that you'll see them go more towards the middle of the pack in pass rate. I mean, the very clear strength of the team right now is the backfield. I mean, Aaron Jones is so good, and so is AJ Dillon, and so I agree with you that like the standalone plus stuff is so vital. And I took a ton of AJ Dillon in like round 10 and 9 last year. It wasn't like a total smash, but he had some certain spike weeks, and I still feel good about that pick too.
Right, and they showed they're not afraid to use him in the passing game either. I mean, they're they're throwing some balls his way.
Yep, for sure.
And you got to like Aaron Jones' splits. I know it's a small sample size, but without Devontae Adams, he's the league winner if he can keep that up.
Yeah, I think that's going to regress some. I do think that people from just like a talent perspective don't think of Aaron Jones in like the same Alvin Kamara type vein, but I don't think that from a pass catching perspective, it's all that different between Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara. Like they can both go out and catch 4, 5, 6 passes in a game, and I wouldn't even think twice about it. I think Drew Brees was so, especially at the end, like target rate of running back was so high, completion rate was so high, and you started to get these outlier Alvin Kamara catch games where it's like 8, 9, 10. But that doesn't mean that he's a better receiver than Aaron Jones, who was just a different situation. So yeah, I think people underrate Aaron Jones' receiving ability for sure.
Right, and those are 2 running backs we can definitely expect to be on this field. I think at the same time, a lot of times, they can split out Aaron Jones anytime they want. Leave Dillon in the backfield.
I mean, they have to. I don't have a lot of high hopes for Christian Watson in year one, and I think people are overhyped on Allen Lazard. And yeah, I mean, I think Sammy Watkins is dust. So I mean, they have no choice but to start doing some creative stuff.
We recently saw Gronk retire. Who are the biggest beneficiaries in Tampa? And then factoring in the kind of pessimistic outlook that we have for Chris Godwin in his nobody can really give you an exact number of games he's going to miss. I tend to think it's a little more than some people think. How high are you on Russell Gage? And can Mike Evans challenge for wide receiver 1 overall?
Yeah, definitely on Mike Evans. I mean, I don't typically view Mike Evans as like a huge yardage guy. He's put on earth to score touchdowns, obviously. Like he is so incredible around the goal line on jump balls deep. Number 1 overall would mean that you'd probably have to catch 100 balls, 110 balls. That's a lot, I think, for the way Mike Evans wins. But man, from a touchdown perspective alone, he could certainly challenge for the wide receiver 1 spot. Russell Gage, I was impressed with last year, man. Like, one thing that I think the fantasy community has trouble with is guys getting better, and I know no one liked Russell Gage coming out. He's 6 foot, he's 185. He wasn't that good. He was a 6th round pick. But guys are allowed to get better once they get into the league, and like Russell Gage, legit, I thought got better and was actually impressive last year in a pretty dire situation in Atlanta. And so I'm pretty optimistic. I was optimistic about Russell Gage, even if I thought Chris Godwin's coming back, early. And now that it looks like Chris Godwin's going to be October, November, well, yeah, I like Russell Gage. We have moved Russell Gage ahead of Chris Godwin in the rankings. I think at this point, most people have based on the recent news. And yeah, I like both of them. The guy I don't like is Cam Brate. I think I couldn't believe how excited people were about Cam Brate. It just made no sense to me at all.
It's weird. It's weird, the enthusiasm for just thinking Cam Brate can suddenly produce like hasn't ever produced, really.
And just add to Gage, Theo, he gave you almost 45% as a wide receiver one from week 12 to week 18 in that offense. So imagine now with Brady in Tampa Bay, we could see that those numbers just continue to escalate.
Yeah, he's super interesting, and there's a lot of smart money in the high stakes that it's on Russell Gage right now. He's shot up. We had Dave Hubbard and Billy Muzi on the other day. They're both drafting the hell out of Russell Gage. So there's a lot of people on him right now. But he's going to certainly reach a point maybe where he gets a little too expensive. How high would you be comfortable taking him?
Yeah, I mean, his ADP has just absolutely gone nuclear. I see him going the 60s a lot now. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the high 50s before things got too far. We actually have him 84th overall in half PPR. And so we're certainly we were ahead of market, and now we're getting behind market on this ADP explosion, So, yeah, I think there definitely comes a point on Russell Gage where, I like Russell Gage. He's not a 5th round pick. I'll say that.
Alvin Kamara's stock is plummeting. We've seen him drop in the high stakes drafts this week, real low. There was an FFWC draft I saw at 350 where he went in the 5th round, which is odd, but he's certainly dropping in FFPC and NFFC. How should fantasy gamers approach an uncertain situation? Are you looking to dive into a potential value on a low end suspension, potentially no suspension, or are you being a little apprehensive thinking that this might be six games or so?
You know what's crazy? There's surveillance tape of this because it's in the police report. There's surveillance tape and nobody's seen it, right? And I haven't seen it. I don't know if you guys have. I have not seen this surveillance tape.
No, nobody has.
Right, and so I feel like a lot of this comes down to public pressure, and if that tape gets out, and I assume it's going to get out, it could get bad for Kamara if what it says in the police report and what the alleged victim is alleging is true. So I know Pro Football Talk came out with the report, and it was couched, and Fleur always does the couch stuff. He thought, I guess the point of his article is he thought that 6 games, based on the terms of the CBA, felony assault, 6 games, no questions asked. We don't know that Kamara is actually going to get felony assault yet, and I don't know how it's going to play out. So I think it depends on your format, and also depends who you're playing. In home leagues where I think I have a huge edge, I can get ridiculous values on my bench. I can have Ramondre Stevenson in the 12th round, et cetera, et cetera. I'm more willing to take guys like Kamara so that I can build a super team for the playoffs. I think in the best ball formats where all the money is up top and the end, tournaments, I mean, literally almost every dollar is at the end. I'm more willing to take Kamara. In tough managed leagues, I think it's harder to use a 2nd or 3rd round pick on a guy like Kamara because you're giving up so much opportunity cost. God, I do like him though, and it's hard. So I would just encourage people to think about their format and think about the structure of their team. And if you have enough running back depth, do you think you can get enough running back depth later to sit on Kamara for 6, 7, 8 weeks? You're asking a lot out of your bench, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Do you think there's any chance that the suspension could come later in the season than the beginning? Yeah. It could be handed down in, late October, November, something like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, lawyers can do all kinds of things to delay this, and they could delay it, and then maybe they delay it till after this full season. I mean, who knows? So yeah, right. I think there's a extremely wide range of outcomes on Kamara for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird situation, and it's kind of like a team structure has to play into it as well. If you're drafting Kamara, I don't know. It's like such a, to see him in the 4th round, it's something that it's really hard to pass up. But I think it kind of depends on what you've done in the first 3 rounds. You better be really locked in on those guys. And a follow-up is, what about approaching a player where we have clarity on the number of games in the suspension? how would you treat a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, where we know he's going to miss the 6 games, and then we know we're getting him back healthy?
Yeah, I was already kind of like I was out on DeAndre Hopkins last year, and I thought that I know he, had injuries and whatever. He just something has seemed off with him, and really this offense. Like I don't have a lot of respect for Cliff Kingsbury and the way he's designing this offense. Like if he didn't have Kyler Murray, like Cliff would just look like a total dolt because Kyler Murray is masking so much of what the Cardinals are doing. Kyler is so good. I'm not that high on DeAndre Hopkins anyways. And then to add in the suspension, we have him 72nd overall. He's going around 75th overall, an underdog or so. I again, structure of your team. How many wide receivers do you have already? Can you afford to sit on DeAndre Hopkins for that long? How effective do you think he'll be upon his return, et cetera, et cetera? So, yeah, I have not been targeting DeAndre Hopkins. Like I take Thielen ahead of him. I take Drake London ahead of him.
I see that one, London.
Yeah, I take Devontae Smith ahead of him. I think it's probably close for me between Treylon Burks and DeAndre Hopkins. But yeah, all those guys in that range, like Tony, Christian Kirk, like all those guys, I think are fine to me above DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not like going out of my way for it. Sky Moore. No, I think I would go.
That's the line.
Hopkins there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The nice thing about Hopkins is also we know when his suspension is, so we can kind of plan our teams around him. If we do end up putting him on the squad, then you've got to have a plan for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took him this week in that like 7th roundish area as my wide receiver 4 in a football guys draft. Like I kind of like him there. I just think if you get out to a head start and then you potentially get him back at 15 plus points a week, it could be a real help to you. Just again depending on your build. Last season we saw Matthew Stafford lead the Rams to a Super Bowl victory in his first season in LA. The year before we saw Tom Brady do the same in Tampa. What's your expectations for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos right now? And how are you playing the Denver Broncos for fantasy? Specific guys you're targeting or guys you want?
This is the hardest, man. They are absolutely loaded. I mean, my God, I like everybody on Denver. I mean, even if you go down to like Greg Dulcich, like I literally like everyone. And that's not unique. Everybody likes everyone on Denver. The problem is you're not gonna be able to support it, right? This is not and this is not going to be an extremely unbalanced team. Like, I don't think we'll see pass rate over expectation on the Broncos get even above average. I think it'll probably come in somewhere around average. So it's not a situation where you're getting all these PPR and half PPR points extra because Patrick Mahomes is throwing the ball 45 times a game to all these guys. It's going to be really hard for this offense to support the ADPs of Javonte, Judy, Sutton, Alberto. Like, it's going to be, and a lot of people like Hamler too. Like, I don't know, man. Like, it's going to be really hard. I think 1 or 2 of the guys on Denver are going to pop in a big way, and the rest are going to be disappointments. And that's barring some injury that thins it out or whatever. But yeah, I would say my favorite right now is probably Cortland Sutton. And honestly, at ADP, my second favorite is probably Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, coaches love giving the ball to Melvin Gordon for whatever reason. And Melvin Gordon was actually good last year. Like a lot of underlying, and I love Javonte Williams. I think Javonte Williams, we would have had Javonte Williams in the top 5 if Melvin Gordon hadn't re-signed, like top 5 overall. But with Melvin Gordon there, I think that the base case for Javonte is a little bit worse than where he's going. The ceiling case is obviously way better. I mean, he's going to play, I think, ahead of Melvin in the pass game. And then obviously if something happens to Melvin, he just goes nuke, but it goes the other way too. If something happens to Javonte, I think Melvin Gordon could go absolutely nuke also. And so to get Melvin Gordon at like 105th, 110th overall or something, I would say that's my favorite. But yeah, I think Russ is going to come in and play really well. It's hard for him not to. Obviously, the division is absolutely loaded, so it's going to be tough. And again, the biggest thing to me on the Denver stuff is I like everyone, and not everyone's going to be able to pay off their ADP.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. I mean, a couple guys are definitely going to just not be able to pay that off. What about Alberto and Tim Patrick? Between the two of them, which one do you like at ADP better?
Oh, God. The Greg Dulcich pick scares me. Not, and you know, like these rookie tight ends normally don't have a big impact. It's no big deal. But a lot of times those guys are like blocking types. Greg Dulcich is not a blocker at all. Greg Dulcich exclusively runs routes. Like he is not going to come in there and like take blocking snaps away and stay in line. So if Greg Dulcich ends up having a role, it's going to be a pass catching role, and that's not great for Alberto. But man, Alberto's just like natural athletic ability is so intriguing. I would say him over Tim Patrick to me. I don't want to disparage Tim Patrick though. I mean, Tim Patrick I think can be an NFL starter. He just has played behind guys, you know, in Denver and kind of is what it is. I do think Tim Patrick can really play though, but I'll go with Alberto as the one I prefer at ADP there.
Yeah, we talked about the Alberto Dulcich situation, and I think it might have created a good buying window for Alberto. It suppressed his price a little bit. He was like rising so high, and now he's somewhat affordable. You could even take him in a 2 tight end build, so he's interesting. I feel like with the receivers, I want to have exposure to both. Like Sutton costs more right now. But I'd like to have some exposure to Judy, some exposure to Sutton in case one does really pop. But yeah, I'm definitely bullish on that offense and their chances, to make it 3 in a row Super Bowl wise.
I laughed because I'm doing that drafters, and I went Javonte in the 3rd, Sutton in the 4th, and Judy in the 5th for that $1 million doing the Denver stack. So maybe I'll slow down moving down the draft.
I
always be stacking, JD. Always be stacking
for sure.
Yeah, other than a stack, I have a hard time talking myself into Judy. I'll be honest.
Yeah, same. Agreed.
I just haven't seen enough over his last 2 years.
Yeah, I do think that like the Jerry Judy, he had like a really bad injury. I mean, those high ankle sprains that these guys have, and he was on his way to a huge game in week 1 last year. I know that's an incredibly small sample, but he has that high ankle sprain in week 1, and it was just like never the same. And so, yeah.
Isn't Hamler coming off a pretty big injury or something?
Yeah. Yeah, Hamler had his ACL too. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about another new quarterback in town in Indianapolis with Matt Ryan? What is Matt Ryan? What is your expectations for Matt Ryan and the Indianapolis Colts offense?
Yeah, the Colts love just like, and you know, they got blindsided by the Andrew Luck thing, but we'll bring in Phillip Rivers at the end of his career. Oh, we'll bring in Carson Wentz after nobody wants him anymore. Oh, now we'll bring in Matt Ryan at the end of his career. You know, it's like hard to get excited about it. I think they'll run a lot of 2 tight end sets. And so that's going to like lead to a lot of condensed target share. These teams that run mostly 2 tight end, 2 wide receiver sets, the target shares are so much more condensed. And so, yeah, I mean, we have a big projection on Michael Pittman. You know, I think that they're still going to try to build the offense around Jonathan Taylor, obviously, and not play too freewheeling. I think with Matt Ryan there instead of Wentz, you get a bit more like veteran, won't make mistakes presence, and maybe that will allow them to air it out a little bit more. But yeah, I'm not, overly excited. I think the Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell battle is one that I'll be watching and probably like, get too excited about whoever wins that. That's kind of my thing. Like I love getting too excited about like these diamond in the rough guys that I like Paris Campbell and Alec Pierce and stuff like that. So yeah, but I'll be watching that one for sure. Honestly, the one I'm most excited about at ADP on the Colts is Mo Alley Cox. I think Mo Alley Cox will be on the field for every snap. And then in 2 tight end sets, it'll be Granson versus Jelani Woods to see who has that job. But Mo Alley Cox can really play, man. And yeah, he's like free, Mo Alley Cox. I mean, I don't even know what his ADP is.
I'm trying to find it. Yeah, he's super late. Even in the tight end premiums, he's going around 18 in the Football Guys Championship right now.
Yeah.
So
Michael,
can I throw in one other quarterback question as long as we're on it? Probably the thing in your in the ETR rankings that surprised me the most is Daniel Jones over Kirk Cousins.
Oh yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
We are leading the Giants and Daniel Jones and Brian Daboll train. Yeah, as I said, the scheme that they were running last year was like not fair to the players. I mean, it's just total idiotic. Now Brian Daboll comes in, and Brian Daboll legit knows what he's doing and knows what he's doing with a quarterback like Daniel Jones. You'll remember when Josh Allen came out, everybody hated Josh Allen. He's inaccurate. He's just some big oafy guy. Josh Allen and Daniel Jones' athleticism, I don't think is all that different. Daniel Jones can run. I know everybody points to that clip where like he falls down winning like the wide. Daniel Jones has rushing ability, not at the same level as Josh Allen, but I think like not that far off. So you combine that for Daniel Jones with what I think is a pretty good supporting cast on offense. Like the offensive line has undoubtedly improved by a lot. And then you get Galladay, Tony, Barkley. Hopefully Sterling Shepard is healthy. They have Slayton. Obviously they drafted Wandale. So, I think that they're going to play very much more aggressive passing, very much more aggressive vertically under Dable. And then you'll get some rushing ability and you'll get yak from these guys who I think can actually play like Wandale and Tony and Saquon. And so I have no problem with Kirk Cousins. I do think the ceiling is bigger. Like we know it is what it is on Kirk Cousins. I think Vikings pass rate will improve this year, and we have baked that in with Zimmer gone and O'Connell in. But yeah, I think the ceiling on Daniel Jones is bigger than people realize. And hopefully that doesn't cost me a fortune for like the third year in a row on Daniel Jones.
So it's more about Jones, what you see as his potential upside rather than anything with Cousins that you see as being a glaring weakness or issue or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like I've had blinders for quarterbacks who I think can run a little bit in the past. Like I didn't take nearly enough Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady last year, right? Because like it's really, you have to be so efficient when you get no rushing. Like your touchdown rate has to be so high, your completion percentage has to be so high. But those guys did it, right? And like I'm just always betting more on guys, give them more room for error because they can run a little bit. And like Kirk Cousins needs to be extremely efficient. He's not going to give you any rushing hardly. He needs to be extremely efficient. And I think he will be. So, that's why we have them close. But yeah, the rushing thing is always going to be like, I guess a blind spot, but I do think that it's right.
Okay. Yeah. And so kind of Justin Fields for the same reasons, better offensive coordinator, better offense, just all those factors plus the fact he can run.
I mean, they didn't even design an offense for the offense they gave Justin Fields last year looked like the one that they had for Andy Dalton,
right.
Like, and so that's not fair to the kid, to evaluate him based on that. I do think that Justin Fields is not like a Lamar Jackson type rusher. Like when people say that, it's just, it doesn't ring true to me at all. And even in the preseason when it was kind of more freewheeling, if you watch Justin Fields, like he was not looking to run, like tuck and run at all. And even in college, like he wasn't that big of a rusher either. And so I think Justin Fields can and will, but I actually think we have a better rushing projection on Trey Lance right now than we do on Justin Fields.
Yeah, Nagy didn't even run RPO for him.
Right.
They did nothing for him. There was no, like, you looked at any end design rollout type situation. They weren't doing anything. It was very weird when you actually take a step back and look at it. And hopefully, they unlock it this year in Indy. In Chicago. I want to go back to one question on Michael Pittman, who I know you guys are high on. But we see him rising way up in ADP. He's going somewhere between wide receiver 10 and wide receiver 14 in every single draft. Does there get to be a point where you're out on Pittman?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's like going to challenge to be a top 5 wide receiver or anything. We have him around wide receiver 16 right now. Like I certainly prefer DJ Moore. Certainly prefer AJ Brown, and I think I prefer guys like Waddle and Big Mike Williams as well, and maybe McLaurin as well. For me, I know that's way off on ADP, but yeah, I'm not like falling over myself to get Michael Pittman at all. I think when people do projections, and obviously our rankings are based in some form of projections that are then like kind of massaged to have the rankings where we want them. Michael Pittman's gonna have a huge target share, like Alec Pierce versus Paris Campbell, and then like a bunch of athletic but unproven tight ends is the competition, and Jonathan Taylor, they don't really show much desire to throw the football to. And so, yeah, you're going to get a big target share on Michael Pittman. And sometimes that can get outsized, I think, because there's really nowhere else to push it. That doesn't mean he's going to be successful with that opportunity.
We have a bunch of running backs this year that are like age 26 and older being drafted in the first few rounds, pretty much of every draft. Is there an older running back besides Zeke that you're nervous about maybe really falling off and busting at ADP?
Yeah, I can. This one's gonna get replayed down my throat, but I can see it going bad for Derrick Henry, man. Like the Titans could be bad. They might want to get a look at Malik Willis at some point, and I think Malik Willis coming in would not be great for Derrick Henry, just taking red zone rushing opportunities, taking inside the 5 rushing opportunities. from Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is also 28 years old, had a serious injury last year. I know he came back. But anytime you have a guy who like doesn't play in the pass game and is relying so much on volume, like he needs 20, 25 carries every single game. So you're relying on game script, you're relying on efficiency rushing. And I know he's been doing it for so long. And you know, it's been frustrating when you don't have Derrick Henry and he just like breaks through 8 guys in the line of scrimmage, goes for a 90-yard touchdown at the end of the game. I think that's just like what he does. And I get it. At some point, it's not going to happen anymore. So, you know, I think in a top 5 pick, I would not be taking Derrick Henry. I think we have him like 8th or 9th overall. I'm okay with that. I would probably prefer it closer to 10th or 11th personally for me on Derrick Henry this year. And obviously it's scary, man. Like one of the scariest fades in fantasy is Derrick Henry. Like every time, you know, I mostly play DFS and I every time I don't play Derrick Henry and the lineup's lock and I see that like 30% of everybody else has Derrick Henry, I'm like, God, this could be really painful.
Yeah, it's kind of funny too, though, that you mentioned that because last month we did I guess it was last month the hard way draft. Derrick Henry went off the board at RB9, middle of the second round, and this is a lot of very good high stakes players. Kind of one of the first drafts where we start butting heads with each other, and Henry just. Yeah, he fell farther than anybody thought he would fall, and he fell right to, as it turns out, right to where you have him pegged.
Yeah.
So there's 3 teams now, Dan, in the football guys with an Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry start, including our draft. So that could potentially be lethal if you want to go with the old running backs this year. And Henry's, we've talked to a lot of high stakes players and analysts, and there's certainly a lot of concern about Henry. And I don't think I'm going to have any of them because I'd probably be comfortable taking him where he's going in that second round. And I don't see that happening that often.
Oh, I mean, the more casual draft you're in, the higher Henry's going to go. I mean, people love clicking Derrick Henry, like people just love it. I mean, they love, and I love watching Derrick Henry too, man. He's just a total freak, but yeah, it is what it is.
No, for sure. We've and JD and Dan, do you have any other running backs that are maybe a little bit older that you're concerned about that maybe the market's not?
Oh, let's see.
I'm such an ageist when it comes to the running back position.
Right. Yeah, I tend to be a little bit as well. I mean, I'm not super high on Chubb. I just. And it's not necessarily his age either. I mean, it's just kind of the whole, the Cleveland offense is making me nervous. I don't see Deshaun Watson playing this year most likely. And, I'm just not sure there's going to be, that offense is going to stay on schedule the way it needs to for him to really get up to the level he needs to be where he's being drafted ADP wise. You guys at ETR looks like probably a little bit lower on him as well. Most people have him in their top 12. You have him just outside that. So I think, Adam, you're probably pretty close to where I am on him. Any thoughts on Chubb?
Oh, yeah. We're so driven by pass game role. It just creates such a better floor and a better ceiling. And so when guys don't have the pass game role, they're going to get dinged for us. Like, period. Yep. Nick Chubb will be one of the most efficient running backs in the league. Even with Jacoby Brissett back there, I think he will be. But talking about a guy who, I do think Kareem Hunt's going to stay on the team. I know there's been speculation around Kareem Hunt getting traded, and I think that maybe is baked a bit into, like, if I'm making a case for Nick Chubb, like one of the best cases that they trade Kareem Hunt, But right. I do think that, Dearness Johnson is there, and they just drafted Jerome Ford. And so, yeah, they have a lot of a crowded backfield. But, yeah, just anytime a running back doesn't play in the pass game, like, they're going to get a big-time ding from us, and guys who do play in the pass game are going to get a boost, period.
Chubb's just kind of that purgatory player where you don't get a lot of upside drafting him, maybe structurally, but he's just so boring to draft. And even if he exceeds expectations, you're never going to get that great receiving work that Adam talked about. Speaking of receivers, we've had every single guest since we pivoted over from rookie draft focused shows answer this one. Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Justin Jefferson are the top 3 wide receivers in every single format, best ball or redraft. They're locked in. which wide receiver besides these three has the best shot at finishing number one overall at the position? And you're welcome to give a few guys if you're bullish on a few.
Yeah, I'll give the obvious one, I feel like, and then I'll give one that's way off the board. The obvious one to me is Steph Diggs. I mean, I could not explain what happened to Steph Diggs last year. Like, and he wasn't even bad, but he never just like completely went off, you know? And I think people thought he had a disappointing year because he didn't have any like huge games. There was just nothing I saw or could find in the data that why he didn't just completely erupt. And Buffalo, you know, is going to be in the top 3 in pass rate over expectation. Steph Diggs is going to play every single snap. I think Steph Diggs is still very much in the prime of his career and is just like so good. And so, yeah, I think Steph Diggs could easily beat out those guys. The guy that's way off the board, who people are going to call me insane, Juju Smith-Schuster has a chance to see 150 targets from Patrick Mahomes, and he's 25 years old, and he's coming off an injury, and he's also coming off playing with Ben Roethlisberger, which has completely tanked everybody's perception of him. I don't play much Dynasty, but there was a time I feel like Juju Smith-Schuster was like the number one player in Dynasty people were taking, or like at least top 5. And then to give up on him so fast, and to give up on him when he's going to play with Patrick Mahomes now after they lost Tyreek Hill seems crazy to me. And so if you told me that Juju can get 150, 160 targets from Patrick Mahomes this year, which I don't think is like that insane, especially with Travis Kelce's age. I mean, why can't Juju Smith-Schuster finish in like the top 5 of wide receivers? And I know that sounds insane because he's going in like, I don't even know, like the 7th round or something like that, or the 5th round or something like that. You know, I want to be high on Juju for sure. And so maybe that doesn't answer your question because it's outlandish to think that he could actually finish number 1. But I did bet on Juju Smith-Schuster to lead the NFL in receiving yards. I think I got 150 to 1 or something like that. And so one time on Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, you got the show title. You got the show title, JD. Adam Levitan, Juju Smith-Schuster, wide receiver 1.
We'll have to change that. We'll have to change that for the pod when we drop the pod.
Oh, for sure.
There we go. Nice. I love it. I mean, Adam, he's a guy I've been high on pretty much this entire offseason. And, you know, there are a lot of high-stakes guys who are very much off him, which I still find puzzling. So it's encouraging to hear you you know, giving me that support on continuing to draft Juju where I am. So,
yeah, and you can get him super cheap in Dynasty right now too. So if you're you know, you're bullish on a potential 2-year, you know, even just a 2-year run attached as potentially Patrick Mahomes' number 1 wide receiver, you can get him really cheap in some of these Dynasty leagues, you know, especially in the FFPC. Stefan Diggs has been brought up as, you know, a lot of people are on him. I'm just curious, in a 12 team league PPR, how comfortable would you be drafting Stefan Diggs, Adam?
Oh yeah, no problem. Like we have him 8th overall, I think, in the half PPR and kind of the best ball stuff. I have no problem taking him there. Like he's floor ceiling combo on Steph Diggs to me. Like I feel like last year was his floor. I mean, he was just like awesome last year and was still like somewhat disappointing, you know. And
he only gave you four top 10 weeks in the whole season, so I think that's why people are kind of shying him a bit, and why he's not maybe in that upper. But to me, he's in that top tier, man.
Yeah,
sure. And it would seem like he'd have a couple times where it seemed like it was going to be a complete smash game, and then it just didn't happen. But they paid the hell out of him. We all believe in the talent. You're starting to see him go a little higher sometimes. I got him at the turn recently in Football Guys, but I've seen him go like 108. I think some people in NFFC are pushing him up to, you know, right after that, the big 3 goes, Stefan Diggs goes like 106-ish. So he's definitely a guy who should smash this year. Flipping over to the tight end position, you talked about Mo Alley-Cox and Dulcich, late guys. What's your approach to the tight end position this year, Adam? Are you targeting the top guys, the mid-tier options, or are you looking with a late tight end approach, or are you open to many different approaches to the position?
Yeah, so my initial read on kind of structure is that like normally rounds 3, 4, 5 are like, I love so many guys in rounds 3, 4, 5. I feel like this year it's not that strong in that range. And so whereas in the past, some of the opportunity costs on the wide receivers in rounds 3, 4, 5, I thought were too high to go tight end. But this year, like I'm kind of okay with it. So like those like Pitts and Kittle types that go, you know, in that range, I think I'm fine with. the Mark Andrews one is a lot of opportunity cost for me. I mean, I know he's been going in round 2 from what I've seen, like middle of round 2 a ton. And that scares me because the opportunity cost in round 2 to me is so much higher than it is to go tight end than it is in other spots. Like, are you going to pass on DeAndre Swift or Aaron Jones or Mike Evans to take Mark Andrews? I don't think that I would. And part of that is because I know I tell myself this every year, but I feel pretty good about some of these like round 10, 11, 12 guys. And Irv Smith is the one that sticks out to me as like the best of them. But I also like Robert Tonyan. I think Njoku is okay. And so, like cobbling together something like, Irv Smith, Albert O, and Ertz or two of, Freiermuth and
Tonyan
and Irv Smith or Tonyan or guys like that. I'm always okay with that. But man, there's so much data out there on tight end that like winning the tight end position in season long is so huge because you can like completely step on someone's throat. Like the ceiling or the expectation on a given week for Irv Smith is 6. And like, if you're getting 15, 20 from Kelsey every week, obviously like the gap there is bigger than it is for most people between quarterback or wide receiver or any other spot. So I like to prioritize tight ends. Just that Mark Andrews opportunity cost thing is, I think, a bit too much for me.
And you're taking him out of ceiling, right? You're taking him basically out of ceiling. So he's going to basically repeat what he did last year.
For sure.
Kyle Pitts, Adam. What are your thoughts on him right now at his current cost?
Like I said, I think in a vacuum, it's not great in round 3 or early 4. But when you compare him to the rest of the guys that go there, I like Pitts, and like you can't just say everybody in rounds 3 and 4 are overvalued. Like that's a dumb thing to say because you have to draft someone, so like you have to take someone there. And I think Pitts is fine. I mean, Pitts is like essentially a wide receiver you're getting to play a tight end. I mean, he's awesome. Obviously, I'm worried about the quarterback play. I don't think Marcus Mariota is really the answer at all. Neither on Desmond Ridder, and it's not going to be great, the quarterback play. But man, Kyle Pitts, you're getting no questions about it. You're getting to play a very good wide receiver at tight end.
Yeah,
no, for sure.
Should be a lot of garbage time going on there. So
yeah,
and he's still offering you upside. There's still room for him to overproduce and to pay back that ADP or more because he's so young and we don't know what's going to happen.
The stats been out there. The number one player who should have scored more touchdowns last year based on their opportunity was Kyle Pitts. I mean, everybody. I don't. That's not like rocket science, but yeah, he's going to score more touchdowns this year, obviously.
And then it was Kmet, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. And that brings up a good point, Adam. We need you to explain your Cole Kmet blasphemy, having him all the way down at tight end 17.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to, we've looked at Cole Kmet because a ton of people have asked us why we're so low on Cole Kmet, and we've like looked over his ranking, his projection like really, really closely, and we feel good about it. It's just hard to like assume leaps for Kmet and hard to assume leaps for Justin Fields as a passer. And so, I try really hard not to just like guys because they have a lot of opportunity. And I agree with you that Cole Kmet has a lot of opportunity on this Chicago team, but man, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he's just like one of these guys that's going to get a ton of, 3 for 36 games. And if he gets a touchdown, it'll be a good week. And if he doesn't, it's not.
Quick OTC, guys, from Famous J. Troutman or Uzuma? I mean, that's an ugly choice to make for your tight end position.
We are digging deep here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can honestly say I have not thought a lot about either of these guys this year. We have Troutman tight end 33 and Uzuma tight end 28. So I'm sorry I can't give you more on these guys. I haven't put a lot of thought into them, but that's how we have it right now.
Famous J, it's time to pivot. It's time to pivot, Famous J.
And another quick one from Dave. Do you have a sleeper DST, for the football guys who are drafting right now?
Yeah. I don't actually know where defenses go because I've been doing mostly best ball drafts and those aren't DST. Have people given up on the Washington defense?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I still think they have one of the best pass rushes in the league. And I mean, if you can get into, I don't worry too much about scoring at defense. And so I think Washington's going to give up points, but they can rush the passer, man. And you get into some of these games where opposing quarterback drops back 40 times against the pass rush that Washington has, they're going to generate a lot of points. So yeah, I think if people have given up on Washington,
it's a good one. They're going in the last round right now in football, guys. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
I've liked taking Denver's defense, Dave. I feel like Denver's kind of discounted a little bit. You heard how bullish Adam is on their offense. They're going to put a lot of pressure on the opposing team, and they have some guys on that defense that can make plays. Dan, is there any defense you've been drafting a little bit consistently, or
not anybody really consistently? Because defense is one of those places where I tend to grab them when there's just there's no other compelling values, and so that can be kind of all over the board as to at what point of the draft I'm taking my defense. So I've been able to get a share or two of Buffalo real early, but mostly it's been like I can grab like San Francisco. They tend to drop a good bit. Denver tends to drop at times, and teams like that where I just feel real good about the offense's ability to put some pressure on the opposing team to score points, and then their defense being good enough to come through and do a lot of pass rushing. And as Adam said, pass rush is what matters, because that's where you get pressures, hurries, sacks, all those kind of things. Those tend to add up to defensive points.
Saquon Barkley's comeback story and his use as a weapon for the Giants has been one of the storylines in June. It's like positive drum beats every single day. The hype machine is in full blast. This week we've seen him go as high as the 1-2 turn. How excited are you for him, and what are your expectations for him? And I know you touched on how you're bullish on the Giants' offense, but specifically Saquon's role in it.
I mean, how many running backs are left in today's NFL that have a true 3-down plus goal line role? Like, you can count them on one hand, and Saquon has that. And so, like, the archetype of a running back that can finish as the running back one, like the actual best running back, Saquon Barkley like has the archetype of that, And so I want to be bullish on guys like that who literally, when he was going the third round, it was insane because, he could literally finish as a running back one. He's another year removed from the ACL injury. He gets the biggest coaching upgrade, biggest scheme upgrade in the entire league. And, it's guys like this just like aren't available in the end of the second round, third round. Now you start to get to the first round, there's more guys like that he's competing with up there. I think the middle of the second round is where I feel good about Saquon right now. If you guys are telling me that he's going before that, I would have to start thinking long and hard about some 1v1 comps between Saquon and other guys that go around there. But if he's there middle of the second round, for sure I'm taking him. The archetype of the way he scores points and the way he's used is just like not how other running backs are used in today's NFL. He's just has such an outrageous role.
Could I throw a couple OTCs at you on that?
Yes,
on the clocks? Would you take Saquon or Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones.
Okay. How about Saquon or Fournette?
Saquon.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, that Aaron Jones one is difficult, but I think I'm definitely Saquon over Fournette at this point. JD, where are you on that one?
I was gonna say all three of those are pretty much very similar. I'd probably mix them up. I don't hate any of them. But I because I like Dylan, I probably skip Jones maybe one extra time every 3-4 drafts. So maybe he's the guy I'd put third out of the three guys you just mentioned.
Yeah. How about Saquon or Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry. Yeah.
So pivoting over to the quarterback position, which quarterback do you think has league-winning value this season in fantasy? Not necessarily who you think finishes as QB1 overall, but who might give you the best return on your investment as a draft pick?
Yeah, I already mentioned two of the favorites, Trey Lance, I think for sure, and Daniel Jones. I guess the more chalky one that I think is, hard to fail is Jalen Hurts. From a offensive perspective, they have a really good offensive line. And now, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, that's nice, man. And I don't think they're going to come out and start throwing the ball over the field. They're going to run in a ton. They're going to run in a ton with Jalen Hurts, though. And so it's hard for Jalen Hurts to fail. I think we saw so much of his fantasy points last year come in garbage time, but that's just that is what it is. I mean, if they're winning, it's going to be through him. He's going to run for touchdowns. And if they're losing, he's going to get to rack up stuff. And he's going to get a lot more from his weapons this year with A.J. Brown in there. So, yeah, it's really hard for me to see Jalen Hurts not paying it off. And he's like QB6, I think, or so right now. And I think it's just like hard to see him falling below QB10 with the way that he scores points.
Yeah, and he also it seems like there's the tiers. It's like a tier break there where the Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson tier goes, and then there's usually a little gap, and then Jalen Hurts. So he's definitely a value right now. Dan, anybody you want to add?
No, I think actually Daniel Jones is one of those ones that I've been pounding consistently in the later rounds, and so that's one place I really like going. I do like Trey Lance as well. I'm a little concerned about how high he might end up going in drafts, but for right now, his price is still perfectly fine. So I don't mind him at all at this point.
What is the most underrated offense right now? Is there an offense that could make a huge leap forward this year? You mentioned the Giants. Maybe another offense that you think fantasy drafters are kind of underrating a bit.
Oh, baby. I have so much money on the Lions. I have Dan Campbell 60-1 to be coach of the year. I have DeAndre Swift 100-1 to lead the league in rushing. I have Lions to make the playoffs plus 475. I have Lions over 6.5 wins. I have Lions over 7.5 wins. I mean, I know it's the Lions, and like they have talent, man. Like they've done a good job building the team, period. And so Jared Goff to me is a guy who can't elevate his teammates, but he can be elevated by his teammates. And when you try it out, and eventually they'll be able to try it out, Hawkinson, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, DJ Chark, DeAndre Swift, I think that those guys can elevate Jared Goff and turn this into like a legit good offense. And they have the pieces to do so. I think that they have pieces on the offensive line to really eat some guys. And so, yeah, the Lions to me are the team that I'm hoping for my bank count's sake that really pops off this year.
You got a great line. You got a great line on a couple of those.
Oh yeah. Well, come on, buddy. I'm always getting the best line. That's what I do. I'm always out
shopping.
He's
shopping around. Around.
That's it. Yeah. The nice thing about Jared Goff too is that fantasy wise, he kind of ends up helping you out every now and then, just because he'll throw that pick six that will just put more pressure on him, to keep trying to score. So that. A quarterback who throws the occasional pick six isn't the worst thing in the world if you're banking on the skill players.
Yeah. And just quick thoughts on Amon-Ra St. Brown with your bullishness on the Lions.
Yeah, I get that he was the only show in town down the stretch last year when he was going off. I get that Hawkinson and Swift were out. They didn't have Jameson Williams. They didn't have DJ Chark. I get all that. You don't do what Amon-Ra was able to do without being really, really good at football. Like there's plenty of guys who had opportunity and not been able to do it. Earning targets to me is a skill. And, it's very clear that Jared Goff likes throwing to Amon-Ra. So, yeah, obviously his target share is going to decrease. He's still a really, really, really good player. And I believe we're still really high above market on him. Yeah, we have him 55th overall, and the underdog ADP is 65th overall. And so, yeah, we're certainly still high on Amon-Ra.
What offense are fantasy gamers maybe too excited about and should manage their expectations? Is there an offense out there you see that could really disappoint this year based on how much we're paying for these players?
Yeah, I didn't have a great answer for this one. The first one that came to my mind was Arizona, but I don't think the ADPs are that high on the Arizona guys, and that's the thing. Like, I think that Arizona's offense, maybe from a national perspective, is overrated, but I still think James Conner is probably going too late for his role. We already talked about DeAndre Hopkins, Ertz is not expensive. And so I think the ADPs on these guys aren't that high. I just think from a national perspective, Arizona's just to me, a middling offensive team. I'm so bearish on Cliff's ability to put them in the right spots to play well. And without DeAndre Hopkins, I think there's problems there as well. And I'm not a huge Marquise Brown guy either. And so, yeah, I get that the ADPs are probably fine, but I'm not that high on Arizona.
All right, guys, this was awesome. We're at 55, so we'll close it here. Adam, you've been more than generous. Dropped a ton of goatness. This has been a great 60 minutes. We appreciate you jumping on. Remind the peeps about the goodness that you drop, where they can find it, and if you guys have any specials or anything coming up for the listeners on ETR.
Yeah, the best thing to do is we have free podcasts and we put out two or three a week on all different kinds of topics, and so I love doing the podcast, and so it's free, and that's the best way to get to know us is if you don't, is just find the Establish the Run podcast and check us out there.
It's a must listen. Dan, Theo, always a blast. Theo, what do we have coming up, brother?
We're going to have a few shows after the holiday. July is going to be loaded. We had just an awesome June. So, we're going to do a couple of live drafts. We're going to have some great guests like Adam. We got some of the best high stakes players in the country coming back on the show. It's going to be an awesome July in the GOAT District.
For sure, guys. Stick with us. Remember, $35 sign-up bonus when you sign up to FFPC on your first deposit. We'll hook you up. You see the email on the screen, goatdistrict@gmail, @goatdistrict on Twitter, or tag any one of us on Twitter. And Underdog, you guys know we can hook you up with a free $100 when you use the code district when you first sign up and drop your first deposit. And then you know where to get your GOAT gear, guys. Viridian Global, go right now. Get your gear for this summer. Tons of t-shirts, hats, for your wardrobe. This has been a blast, guys. Hope you guys got a lot of goodness out of it. We'll check you all later. Oh, by the way, happy Canada Day and happy 4th of July. So we'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offer's the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Adam, I got 2 minutes. I forgot to ask you, Buffalo backfield, how you feel about it?
I like James Cook. I'm a little concerned about the ceiling on James Cook. Like, I'm not sure even if Singletary got hurt that they would all of a sudden like give James Cook 20 touches, but they're going to throw so much, and I think James Cook will be the pass down back, and so I think I think he's my favorite.
Theo likes hearing that. We pounded on Theo yesterday for liking Cook over Singletary. So
I got somebody backing me up right now. There you go.
For sure. I could see Singletary being a value too, but yeah, I mean I think we have Singletary like 104 and James Cook 112. So yeah, certainly close.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there's no way to go wrong really with either one.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Adam. This was awesome, man.
All right, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep,
Take care, Adam. Thanks again.
Later.
Yep, later.